This evening I would like to speak about good deeds and how they become the basis for special happiness in our lives. And the word for this in Pali is Punya Kriya Vatu. So Punya Kriya Vatu, in this compound word, Punya means pure or cleansing, purifying. And Kriya means something that should be done without fail. And Vatu means that it is the basis or foundation for special happiness. So these types of good deeds that are pure and the basis for special happiness and that must be done without fail, there are three kinds, and these are dana, the act of generosity, sila, morality, and bhavana, which is meditation, or also you can say mental development. Dana or generosity means giving something that we have, instead of using it, keeping it for ourselves, giving it to someone else. And sometimes we feel motivated by respect for another person, so we want to give something, like to our, when I went to school, we would give things to our teachers. And then another motivation for giving things is because we want the person to be fulfilled. We want them to have something that they need. That we want to fill that need, and we want them to be happy. So how giving can be a very high-level act is that, first of all, in order to give something, we have to let go of it. So the act of giving reduces our greed, our attachment to what we have. Giving so that we can gain a reputation as a generous person, or so that other people will like us. This is not high level giving. This is not a high level motivation or a high level state of mind. So when we give something, we shouldn't have any type of selfish interest in doing it. We shouldn't have that type of motivation for gaining a reputation or for getting the love of the recipient. Instead, we should have the wish that the other person be happy because they have this thing to use, or because they have their need fulfilled. They didn't have whatever it was, a ballpoint pen or a pencil, and now they have it, so that lack has been fulfilled, and they don't have to suffer. So this is the type of motivation that we should have when we give something. The wish for another person's welfare, which we can say is pure love, or loving kindness, metta. And the wish, compassion for the other person, the wish that they be free of the suffering of not having what they need. So when we give in this way, we increase our loving kindness, our metta, and this overcomes hatred. We can't feel hatred for another person when we want their welfare. And it helps us, when we develop compassion, the wish to relieve the suffering of another, this overcomes cruelty. So these two qualities of metta, or pure love, loving kindness, and compassion, or karuna, are very important in our human relationships. And when these two attitudes are present, we also develop the feeling of being happy when we see another person is happy too. So this is called mudita in Pali, rejoicing in the good situation of another. So these three are very, very beneficial qualities to develop. And these are present in the act of giving to a certain extent when we develop giving in this way. Acts of generosity. When we give to other people, these actions naturally bring the result of material benefit for us, material support in the future. This is the natural result. But we shouldn't have any expectation for this to happen. Really, the act of giving is strictly for the other person to have what they need. And for ourselves, the fact that we give something, the fact that we give, this can support our aspirations, because as the natural result of giving, we get material benefits. We have enough ourselves because we give to others. And this helps us. We all have enough, for example, to come here to meditate. If we have to spend 100% of our time, our waking hours, struggling to make a living, we won't be able to come to take time to meditate. So when we have enough materially, it's very helpful for us, and it can help us achieve our goals. So dana is something that we should do. It's not, although it's kind of a minor good deed, it is something that is helpful for us and helpful to others to do. A higher level of good deed is morality, sila. And this is restraint of our actions and speech, as we mentioned last night. Only when we can restrain ourselves to keep from harming others is our behavior truly human. It's not worthwhile to be a human being only in form. Our behavior should also be human. And this is what we get from keeping moral restraint. So, one thing that helps us to keep sila is to be able to, it's very important actually, one of the most important qualities a person can have is to be able to think logically before doing something or before saying something or planning something. To be able to think, is this action, is this speech, is this idea going to be beneficial or not? That's the first thing we should be able to try to reason out logically. If something isn't going to be beneficial, we shouldn't do it. If we do that thing that won't be beneficial, there will only be detriment. And this is similar to, the type of consideration we have to have before we eat something. Does this food give me an allergic reaction? Is this poisonous? Do we have to think about, is it going to benefit me or not to eat this? And if we avoid the things that are not going to be beneficial, then we don't suffer from eating something that is bad for us or poisonous. And further, even if something is beneficial, we have to consider further, is this suitable to do or not? If something is beneficial but not suitable, doing it will not bring much benefit. So we have to undertake things that are going to be both beneficial and suitable. If we select those things that are going to bring benefit, and do them in their own time and place, then we will get good results. So if we think about the actions such as killing, or stealing, or adultery, these actions are not personally beneficial, and they are certainly not beneficial to the other person. So how they are not personally beneficial? When we commit acts like this, we encounter 4 types of dangers. One is we blame ourselves. if we do something that is grossly wrong, like killing or stealing or commit adultery. So not only do we blame ourselves, but we get blamed by other people, especially by the wise, if this deed that we've done comes to light. And third, we have the danger of punishment by law if we've broken the law, and of course there's danger of revenge from on the side of the person who was harmed. And the fourth danger that we encounter is the danger of bad future existences. Even in the present life, if you don't even think about having a future life, still you can think about the way one's life would be changed by committing actions such as killing, stealing, or adultery. In the present life itself, it brings bad results. When we do acts of giving in a way that develops loving kindness and compassion, then this giving opens the door for us to keep morality, because it reduces our selfishness, it reduces the qualities of hatred and cruelty, and instead helps us to develop qualities of loving kindness and compassion. Actions like killing and stealing and adultery are acts that selfish people do. People do these things because they only look at themselves. They don't see what happens to the other person. Also lying, when we lie to harm another person. This is something that we won't do if we are not selfish. We won't do it if we're not overcome by anger or hatred or cruelty. So with loving kindness and compassion, plus the ability to reason things out logically, it's easy to restrain ourselves and keep sila. And restraining ourselves makes our behavior truly human, whereas the qualities of loving kindness and compassion keep our mind humane. Then the third class of good deed that is pure and becomes the basis for special happiness is bhavana punya, or the meditation as we do now. First of all, samadhi bhavana is what we start with. When we start the practice, we make effort to observe what arises at the six sense doors. We use the qualities of effort to get the mind to the object, and aiming so that we become concurrent with the object. So we try to observe whatever arises at the six sense doors, and doing this concentrates the mind. So there are six sense bases, as we mentioned, and then there are objects of the senses. When the sense object strikes the sense base, then there's consciousness that arises. So when we have an eye that is capable of seeing, and a visible object comes in contact with the eye base, then there's seeing that arises. When there's a sound that comes in contact with the ear base, then there's hearing. We know the sound. When there's an odor that comes into contact with the nose base, then there's smelling. When there's a tasteable object that comes into contact with the tongue, then there's tasting. When there's a tangible object that comes into contact with the body, then there's the sense of touch. And there are also various objects, mental objects, that are perceived by the mind at the mind door. So all these phenomena are what we need to observe when we meditate, and we make effort to observe them as they arise, and also to aim the mind accurately. And doing this brings about a concentrated mind. Although we have to observe all these 6 kinds of objects, at the beginning the easiest is for us to watch the rising and falling of the abdomen. So when we sit, we put our attention at the abdomen, just like we have to, if we want to greet a visitor who's coming, we want to go to the place where that visitor is going to arrive in order to greet someone who's important. And we have to get there on time. The same way with the rising and the falling. We want to be there in time to observe the rising and to observe the falling every time they happen. And this takes effort. We have to make effort again and again to observe the rising, to observe the falling. And we also have to aim the mind so that we can get there precisely at the beginning of the rising. Once we can get there at the beginning of the rising, we can stay with it. We have to keep on trying, kind of like when we try to practice our throwing. When we're trying to learn how to throw a ball accurately, we just keep on throwing it, maybe at the same place on the wall, to try to develop the effort needed to get the ball to the place where we want it to go, and the ability to aim, so that it also, not only so that it reaches the wall, but so that it gets to the place on the wall that we're trying to aim at. It's the same with watching our rising and falling. It takes a lot of practice. And in the walking, we try to observe the movement of the legs or the foot as we make each step, observing right step and then left step, trying to keep our mind in sync with the leg as it moves, or in sync with the foot as it moves, trying to get our mind to be there right at the beginning of the step, to keep it focused on the foot or on the leg, the lower leg from the knee down, so that it stays there through the entire step. And this is something we have to just practice again and again, to make the effort to get the mind to the place where the action is happening, and to catch it right at the beginning with accurate aim. So it's necessary to concentrate the mind in this way if we want to develop knowledge. So at this point I would like to tell a story that I think is inspiring from the Dhammapada about a young novice named Pandita. And in regard to this novice, the Buddha said a verse, which I will say in Pali, and then you will understand it when after I tell the story. He said, Udakang hi nayanti nitaka, usukara namayanti tejanang, darong namayanti tetraka, atanang tamayanti pandita. This young Pandita was ordained as a novice when he was 7. And of course his family, for 7 days they offered dana to him at their home. But on the 8th day he had to go out on alms round. And so he went out following after the Venerable Sariputra. And as he followed the Venerable Sariputra on alms round, each of them they were carrying their own alms bowl, he saw that farmers were irrigating the fields by digging ditches and channeling the water to go to where they wanted it to go. So he was struck by that, and he said to the Venerable Sariputra, can water that has no consciousness, no mind at all, be guided to go wherever you want it to go? And the Venerable Sariputra said, yes, water can be guided like that. As they continued on alms round, he saw that some arrow makers were heating up the bamboo shafts of their arrows and then straightening them. And he thought, oh, this bamboo has no consciousness at all, but they heat up the bamboo and they can make it straight. And then further on he saw that carpenters were working to make cartwheels out of wood. They were cutting and planing and sawing the wood to make it into wheels. So he thought, oh, they can work the wood like this and make it into something useful. So he thought to himself, so why shouldn't I be able to tame my mind so that I can practice samatha and vipassana? So he told the Venerable Sariputra that he wanted to go back to practice meditation. And the Venerable Sariputra took his bowl and continued on alms round, gathering food for both of them, and he went back to his room to practice. He didn't tell the Venerable that he wanted to go back to practice. He just said he would go back. And the Venerable Sariputra thought, oh, he's not used to being on alms round, so he didn't know what was in this child's mind. But when he went back to his room, he practiced sincerely and earnestly. And the celestial beings, including the King of the Gods, made the monastery and the surroundings very quiet, so that he was able to concentrate his mind easily and develop knowledge until he realized the third stage of enlightenment. The Venerable Sariputra was then coming back with the food for the boy's lunch, and he had to eat before 12 noon, like we do. But he wasn't yet an arahant, and so the Buddha saw he had the potential to go further in his practice if he could only practice a little while longer without being disturbed. So he stopped the Venerable Sariputra and delayed him by asking him questions. And while he was doing so, the boy could continue his practice and realize arahantship. The Buddha said about this that when a person is earnestly practicing the Dhamma, even celestial beings give their protection. And even I stopped the Venerable Sariputra so that the Samanera would be undisturbed. And he said the verse which I said in Pali at the beginning, which is, farmers channel the water, fletchers straighten the arrows, carpenters work the wood, the wise tame themselves. So by practicing like this, we can tame ourselves, and it's a very worthwhile task to do. It's possible to do. It takes a lot of effort, but it leads onward if we put this into practice. So that is one thing that this story exemplifies, that it is possible to tame the mind. And the second thing is that we need the support of other beings when we undertake the practice, so that we aren't disturbed. And I'm going to talk about that tomorrow night, about ways that we can create a disturbance-free environment for practice. So may you all be able to apply the instructions and gain the peace and happiness that you so desire.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.